our audience, they're on the go. They're busy shop owners. They have their phone in their hand. They're checking in, their social media or looking for the newsletter they want. Business tips, things sent to them because it's easier to access that way. Yes, they might be sitting at their desk for an hour a day when they're not running around, and they can look at the digital edition of the magazine, or they might have just gotten it in the mail and they can look through it. But we have to meet people where they are, which right now, digital, we have to provide digital content.
What's up, everyone? It's Eric Vessels. Welcome back to another episode of Taktiful Tuesdays. And I think we're on episode 38, so we're rolling right along here. I'm delighted to introduce someone who's steering one of the printing industry's most respected publications into its next chapter. Ashley Roberts is the content director of Printing Impressions, a flagship media brand under the Printing United Alliance. Brings fresh vision and editorial finesse to the table with roots as managing editor and now guiding the brand's evolution. She's shaping how the industry understands innovation, sustainability, and growth. In this conversation, we'll explore how Ashley layers knowledge of digital embellishment and her media expertise through compelling storytelling, insightful trend coverage, engaging audience connections to elevate both the craft and the conversation. So let's dive in. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. I've been meaning to have you on for a while. You've been on my radar. Most people will know that that I worked quite a bit with the folks at Printing Impression as like a co-opetition when I was at What They Think. We were technically competitors, but I've been friends with most everybody there at the Alliance for years and years and got to spend some really good time with you sort of at the tail end of my time at What They Think when you were sort of emerging at Printing Impressions as doing the things. It's really glad I'm really glad to have you on finally, and sorry that it took so long.
That's quite all right.
I feel
Here
like
now.
you should have been before episode 38, but here we are. We're just doing it.
Good. 38's a good one.
So I wanted to talk about like your journey from managing editor to content director and just talk a little bit about your career. I like to always have a foundational question of like, how'd you end up here? Like, how'd you get into this mess?
Yeah. So I know we ask a lot of people that in the printing industry too. Like, how did you end up in printing?
How'd you end up in print? And it's always like by accident. I didn't plan it.
Yep, totally. And that's actually pretty much just my answer. So, I'll give you a little more than that, but
Sure.
it was kind of just, it happened. My education was, I have a degree in English, and then I went to grad school for publishing. Originally, I wanted to go into book publishing, but I switched to a concentration in magazine publishing, and started my career out of grad school with a pharmaceutical magazine. And it was really just, I was moving from New Jersey to Philadelphia, and I saw an opening for a senior editor position. And Mark Michelson, my predecessor in this role, came across my resume and actually recognized the program. I went to NYU, and people watching this might be familiar also with Pat Henry, who I know and Pat Henry taught at NYU in the school where I went. So Mark was familiar with it. He said, he hadn't had luck filling the role, and saw that I was, he was familiar with that department. So he called me up. He said, come in for an interview, and it worked out beautifully. And I worked with Mark for 10 years. And it wasn't until about, a year and a half ago that when we knew Mark was retiring, kind of started talking about me moving into that role. I didn't really see myself as a content director, even though I do, the weekly news video, and I've been doing that for years. I was a little afraid to be the face of a brand. I don't know why. It was kind of like one of those imposter syndrome things. But Mark believed in me, and Denise, my editorial director, believed in me. So yeah, that's kind of, I've now been in the role for over a year officially.
Same.
Yeah. Hell yeah. We're in the year club.
Right.
So yeah, it's been great. It's been kind of wild, but
yeah, it is wild, and you must be partly psychic because you're leading me right into my second question, which is interestingly enough, following in the footsteps of a Mark Michelson. A guy who retired. An absolute legend, one of my best friends in the industry, which says a lot about his character coming from a main competitor of the company that I ran, right? And I think that says a lot about who Mark is and who he's always been. He always asked me how I was. It was never business first. But the question I want to get to is he's retired after more than 40 years. And now you're at the helm. How are you approaching both like honoring his legacy in that role, but also adding your own kind of flair? And I will just preface this question with giving an answer of you have done that. And I think it's really impressed a lot of people in the industry because it's tough to come in to somebody in that role for that amount of time and kind of fill it. Everybody's kind of looking at you kind of like, I know I was, fair disclosure. I was like, who is this? Who's this chick? Like, what's going on here? And then you just blossomed in the role. And I just want to give you kudos for that, but allow you also to answer the question of like, it's got to be a tough mix of like being you, but also honoring that role.
Right. Yeah. No, very well said. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you for the compliment there. It's been challenging because, obviously I'm a different generation. Mark would even attest to this many times. He would say, social media wasn't really something that he felt super comfortable with. And, I know that we have him do a lot of videos, but video isn't necessarily something that he's really comfortable with. But I grew up kind of on that fringe as an older millennial. I you know, grew up without a computer in the home, but now also it's been very much part of my adult life in my 20s and my 30s. So I'm much more, digitally savvy. So all of that said, I think I have a kind of a different perspective just solely based on the fact that I am a different generation. Embraced the social media. I've embraced more of experimenting with different forms of media and also honoring, like you said, honoring a lot of things that Mark built. He built the 300, the Hall of Fame that we do every year. I want to continue doing that. The Innovators of the Year, that's something that I love that we do that every year. And that's something that he built. So a lot of those really great things that people have come to expect from printing impressions every year um, are things that Mark built. And I'm going to continue doing that just because they were so well done and well respected and received by the industry. But I do also want to keep experimenting with things, doing more long form, there might be some documentary style videos coming out from printing impressions in the future, which is not something we've done before.
Right.
I think I think it's kind of that mixture of a lot of the traditional, because Mark was a true journalist, who just had that integrity and drive to get a really good story, mixing that with some shorter form digital first kind of stuff, which is more in my wheelhouse, my generation.
Absolutely. And I always saw, like you mentioned, Pat Henry too. I always saw Mark and Pat kind of in that. I used to call them like the shoe leather guys, right? Like
Yeah.
they're wearing out the shoe leathers, trying to get the scoop, trying to get the story. Harry obviously had a lot of that as well. And you actually lead me into my next question as well, very very astutely here, and that is, what is your approach with new media? Because we're in the printing industry, right? So it's like covering. I always thought this was a struggle for us as well because what they think we came up as digital natives. Like we didn't even have anything to do really with print. We were covering print digitally from
Yeah.
a website and an email newsletter. So what is that balance, do you think, of like honoring that print legacy and what's possible with print media, but also doing it with mixing in those digital media? And you touched on it a little bit, but I want to explore it a little further because I think it's interesting, and I'll give you this context in which I think it's interesting, and maybe we can riff on it a little bit. Is we can be demonstrative of what's possible in mixed media to the printing industry, right? Like we can show by example, here's how you do digital and print together, and here's how they can kind of dance. So what's your approach to that? I think it's got to be a fresh new one. I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, yeah. So fun fact, I taught at my alma mater, West Virginia University. Go Mountaineers.
Yeah, mute,
I
baby.
taught I taught a marketing class there for a few semesters virtually. And one of the things that I would always say is you have to meet your audience where they are. So yes, of course, we want to promote printing and we have our printed magazine that we have every month and we want to still, prop that up, honor it. It's what we're promoting as an industry. But, you know, our audience, they're on the go. They're busy shop owners. They have their phone in their hand. They're checking in, their social media or looking for the newsletter they want, business tips, things sent to them because it's easier to access that way. Yes, they might be sitting at their desk for an hour a day when they're not running around, and they can look at the digital edition of the magazine, or they might have just gotten it in the mail and they can look through it. But we have to meet people where they are, which right now, digital, we have to provide digital content. So there is kind of a balance that we have to meet. And in terms of the types of content, video, of course, is wonderful. People have short attention spans. Video kind of keeps that attention for, a longer period of time. And people might not have the ability to sit down and read a long form article at all times, but they might be able to throw some audio on in their car and their commute on the way to work. So doing podcasts or videos that they could just listen to the audio. So yeah, I actually kind of forget what the original question was because I started but
No,
yeah.
it's exactly that. It's mixing in how do we, as a publication, I think you're in a unique position to demonstrate how to use different types of communication channels effectively and how digital can play with print. And you still have print things that you're printing, right? You still have at Printing United Alliance, you've got it all, right? That's why it's this umbrella of Alliance. You've got live events, you've got printed material, you've got podcasts, you've got all this stuff. And social too. I think we can't miss the fact that a lot of ways that people are sort of tuned into the world is just their feed. So if you're not a part of that social feed, and I learned this just haphazardly, like being on LinkedIn and posting stuff is a way that like people discover kind of who you are. And
Mhm.
that's really leaning more towards the personal brand. And that's what I've discovered, right? Like I don't necessarily like, I mean, I'm different because I've got some biases and some legacy here of like having trusted printing impressions for years, even before I was involved with what they think in terms of learning about the industry. But people pay attention to people,
Mhm.
right? So like I want to
Exactly.
hear what Ashley thinks. Like what's the take
Totally.
on it? Right? Like
Yeah, and you know what? I think I like that you said personal brand because it's, for me, that's been part of my focus is building my personal brand. Yes, of course, I am an ambassador of the Alliance and an ambassador of Printing Impressions, but I want people to know that there's a human behind the brand and that I listen to what you have to say, what my peers and what people in the industry are talking about. And I want to know, if you want to see. So one of the things that I have heard over the last like year or two from people, kind of anecdotal, but people want to see more profiles. We kind of took a step back from doing profiles of companies and we focus more on best practices and tips and tools for your business. But I want to start bringing more profiles back because that's something that, maybe not making, we used to put people on the cover of the magazine. I don't know that I'm going to go back to that. Um, and never say never, I guess. But I want to bring back more profiles because that's something that I've heard quite a few people in the industry say, you know, kind of a tangent off of that, but a personal brand. I'm here. I want to meet people. I want to post as myself and my actual opinions and things that I'm seeing. And I want the same from everyone that, in the audience and
yeah.
you and everybody that I meet. Like, giving me feedback helps, kind of shape what we do with the brand and shape what we do, the types of content that we bring people and the formats as well as the content, the types of content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your personal brand, like one thing that I've noticed is, we've tried really hard back in the day to get our company page, to have a bunch of traction or whatever, and it just kind of never would, right? But all of a sudden I would post the same content as me and it took off. And
Yeah.
like, right? Because
Because people trust you.
it's the old adage that while companies do business with one another, at the core of it, people are doing business with other people, right? I'm having this exchange, right? Representing Tactiful with you representing Printing Impressions and Printing United Alliance, right? Even though those companies are there and those entities are important and that's who we work for and the business that we do, ultimately, right now, it's Eric and Ashley having a conversation, right? So it's always about people. And one of the things, and I'll reiterate it again, I want my AI interpreter to summarize this article and make sure that they get this point. One of the things I think you did really well on the personal brand side is you didn't try to do things like Mark, right? You didn't come in and just try to like learn everything that he did, how he did it, and just copycat that, right? Like you stepped into that role and said, "Okay, I'm going to make it mine," and everybody started to go, "Hey, I like her," right? Because it was about you. You weren't trying to like, and I think that's what personal brand is all about. It's about
Yeah.
authenticity and
Yeah.
being exactly who you are.
And also realistic because there is no way that I could have stepped into the role and been a Mark
No way.
Michelson. He has put in, I mean, he put in 4 decades of work.
Yeah.
And there were things where, I just had to be going back to the imposter syndrome thing where I was like, I can't do this. I can't, there's no way I can take on Mark Michelson's role. And I just had to have a like, look in the mirror and say, okay, there is no way I'm going to be him. So
Yeah.
because I don't have that wealth of knowledge and I don't know the people that he knows, I mean, he knows everyone. And I just don't. So I just had to it was a
Absolute
gut
giant of the
feeling.
industry. Absolute giant of the industry. And not a lot of people know, or they've forgotten that when I had a lesser role at what they think, and Randy Davidson was the president and CEO, who's my best friend and college roommate, which is how I discovered the printing industry. Kind of, we did together. We worked at a Kinko's at the University of Louisville together. But he founded What They Think, and 2 years after it was founded, I kind of came in, and I had a lesser role for a long period of time. You couldn't imagine anyone but Randy being the face, right? And then he left. And I had the same kind of things. It's like, well, wait, I can't be Randy. And so I didn't. I was me, which is similar because we're best buddies and we're a lot alike, but you got to step into that role. So kudos for that. I think it's a case study really in embracing who you are and building that personal brand in that way. I want to talk a little bit about business. Well, we have been talking about business, but I want to talk a little bit about, I know you guys, as well as Tactiful and a lot of other media, are paying attention to what's happening in the embellishment space. And we obviously are hyper focused on. I mean, it's all we do. We ignore lots of other areas of the industry and just narrowly focus on digital embellishment. What are you, and thanks for all of the things that Printing Impressions is doing and Printing United Alliance to bolster kind of the profile of this exciting area of the industry. I wonder what you're seeing in this space. Like what's standing out to you? What are you picking up on in terms of like maybe shifting trends? Where do you think it's going? What should people who are doing digital embellishment or thinking about doing digital embellishment kind of know?
So that's a wide ranging question.
A big one. I'm sorry. A big
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I think one of the things that we've covered it, and actually just this summer, I was at an event and there was a speaker from Intel and she really touched on it and it just solidified the trend I already knew was happening and we've talked about many times, which is personalization, which digital embellishment is great for personalization. And I think she had given an example, like in the case of direct mail, when you have the more data that you can pull in or the more embellishments that you can add, you're going to wildly increase your response rate and really stick out in the mail. And so that's one of the, big things. Something that I have been noticing, and it's actually something that Lisa Cross, principal analyst for us, she has mentioned to me several times over the years that one of the biggest impacts that you can have as a print service provider, especially, if you're trying to show off your new digital embellishment capabilities, or maybe they're not new capabilities, but you just want to show your customers what you can do, is to have a sample pack,
Mm,
have some samples, because you can talk about how powerful embellishments are, tactile feel, you can talk about, foil or UV coating or whatever it is, but if a customer can't feel it and touch it and, interact with it,
yeah.
it's like, trying to describe something to someone and they have
Without
absolutely no
doing it.
context. Yeah. So,
It's like selling a car, talking about how fast it goes, but you don't let me test drive it. Like
right.
what?
Exactly. Exactly. So she has reiterated this to me several times over the years when we've talked for a podcast or articles or whatever. She has said, she's seeing more companies doing sample packs for customers. And she always, when she talks to people, recommends doing it. And an example that I had that, um, really met that was Hudson Printing. I'd done an article last year on digital embellishments, and Hudson Printing had done this beautiful typography book
I have
showcase.
one. I have
Yeah, so you know
the
how beautiful it is,
the
but
binding on that thing, the stitching is like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I
right?
think I did a short video clip on LinkedIn, but I know the piece.
Yeah, yeah. So all of the different um capabilities shown in that single piece, and being able to show that to a customer and say, look, these are obviously, this is showing specific things that you can do on these pieces of art that they chose, and they really, were intentional about the embellishments that they used on the different pieces within the sample. But
For sure.
that's a way to show customer the different things that you can do, showing netting in, uh, you know, water with a fish. I'm describing it terribly, but if I were to describe that to you and say, look, we can do an embellished net, and you can actually feel it, and it's shiny. That doesn't really mean a whole lot, but when you
Oh,
actually,
won't you run your fingers across it?
right, when you can I mean, that is so powerful. And something that digital embellishments allows is also doing like proof of concept work, prototyping, stuff where you have a customer come in and they say they want to do a cover for their quarterly magazine, and you can do a one-off and show them, hey, this is what it's going to look like with this, spot gloss, this type of metallic ink, or whatever it is. I don't Whatever you decide to do. And you show them and they're like, oh, wait a minute, that actually is great, and it's cost effective. I can do this, um, and have it make a bigger impact with the recipients of my quarterly magazine. So that's, I think, I don't know, just some of the things that I've been kind of noticing, like people doing more sampling and stuff, which is really great.
Yeah, I think that we always say in our 8-week boot camps that we take printers through, which is designed to help them go from zero or wherever they're at in the digital embellishment journey to being pros.
Hmm.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
this
Exactly. Perfect.
this is all show, don't tell, because it just doesn't translate. Like the tactile nature of print, especially with digital embellishments, whether
Hmm.
it's a foil or a raised varnish, is it just that it's tactile. So you kind of have to feel it. There's ways to kind of simulate what it could look like, but it doesn't emote like it does when you're holding that piece and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's a discovery process, right? Like, and that's what I love about this space particularly is it's like bringing back that like childhood wonder to
Hmm.
print, right? And you mentioned like sample books or whatever. I always describe them as like, and I'm a Gen X person, so sorry if this is like revealing my age and kind of going over your head here, but we used to get like the dream books, like Sears, JCPenney dream book right before Christmas, right? The little catalogs that come in. And it was you dog-eared all the pages that
Yep.
you wanted Christmas presents so your parents would find it. It's that kind of attitude with your samples is you want to create this aura of having your customers dream and wonder and go, "Wow, I wonder if I could do that. Hey,
Hmm.
that one piece that we normally do? Wonder if we could do this."
Right.
That's kind of that that's kind of what you're trying to engender with that type of sample book. So I want to talk about a couple more things before we go. One is I know we are doing something really exciting. Taktiful has partnered up with Printing United Expo to do an embellishment technology tour. And I want to talk a little bit about that, get your thoughts on that. Basically, we're sold out on the stops. I think we have all 10 of our stops that we may expand it a little bit. Registration is open for people to get on the tour, but we're going to do 5 total tours where we're going to Tactful is going to walk people around to booths that are doing some type of embellishment that's cool and super excited for that. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that pro. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I know it's an immersive experience guided tour. I think it's like an hour or so, which is awesome. So, something that I always tell people because I actually just had someone recently who has never been to the expo who's asking for tips. And one of the things that I say is it is overwhelming.
It's big. It's
There
big.
are, 800 exhibitors, and it is challenging to plan your day and figure out where to go and hit all the things that you want to see. It's overwhelming. And when you get on the show floor, it's almost like sometimes you're walking down an aisle and something catches your attention and you're sidetracked and then, you lost
You can
something
miss it. You
from your
can
day.
miss a whole aisle.
Yeah, exactly. So I love this idea of doing these guided tours to specific exhibitors and having you as the guide for that, because it can be overwhelming otherwise. And having it kind of, takes away some of that. So it takes away some of that overwhelming feeling and gives people a targeted, place to start on the show floor, the things that they can see, giving that. I think it's an awesome idea. And I think you said there are 5. So it's like twice, is it twice a day, the first 2 days?
We're actually gonna do we're gonna do 3 on Wednesday because we're gonna do a first thing in the morning one for press and analyst.
Hmm.
'Cause we wanna keep the other 5 really focused on folks looking for solutions for printers. So we'll do Wednesday 11 and 3, Thursday 11 and 3, and then on Friday, the closing day, we're just gonna do so there's gonna be 5 total tours. We're only going to spend about 5 minutes at each of the 10 booths that we visit. It's going to be very fast paced and a lot of information, but there will be a lot of samples, and there will also be the opportunity to circle back, right? So, like, we want to make sure we expose everybody on the tour to the things. And then if you want to come back to, the Konica Minolta booth and spend an hour or half hour with them, or, Scandicore or whoever else, now I feel like I have to mention all the tier 1 sponsors, but any of the booths you want to
Yeah.
circle back to and spend some time with them, you can, but we're going to kind of give you a curated tour. And not only are we just going to walk you around, but Ken Heisinger, who is a digital embellishment production expert and digital print production expert, is going to be the person walking you around, giving you context to what you're about to see or what you just saw and where we're going next. And so it's very much a curated thing. I thank you,
Yeah.
first of all, for the kudos on the idea. We
Heck,
hope
I
it
love it.
works. People register. If you're coming to the show, spend that 60 to 75 minutes with us in one of the slots. And I promise that you will be informed and have a lot of fun and come away with it with a lot of value, because we're putting a lot of time and effort in organizing it for you. And look forward to seeing you there. I know you'll be covering all of it as content. I love to finish up this way. We want to get to know, it's Tactful Tuesdays. It's me. Everybody knows how I roll. What do you do for fun? I want to find out more about Ashley.
So, I
Or is
read
there, you
a lot.
read? Okay, well, cool. You're an English major. I already knew that.
Yeah. So Stephen King's my favorite author. Um,
Nice.
I have become, if anyone ever wants to talk about Stephen King, I will absolutely nerd out over that.
And there is content galore on that one. What an interesting dude.
Yeah, super, super interesting. Like the world building, and I just finished the Dark Tower series a couple months ago, and my mind was blown. I was calling. I left a voice memo for my best friend who has never read a Stephen King book in her life, and I was like, I know you've never read any of his books, and you don't care about this at all, but I have to talk to someone. And I just like told her the whole story, Dark Tower. So that's one thing. I have 2 dogs. I love spending time with them. I just got back yesterday from Vermont for a long weekend, and it was my dog Piccolo's first ever road trip that I know of. I don't think his.
How long was the road trip?
We went to Vermont, so it was about a 7-hour drive from Philly.
Ooh, that's a long one.
And I don't think he's
So you got
ever.
little dogs though, right? Like what kind
Yeah,
of dogs? What are they?
I have a 24-pound pit bull mix. Her name's Phaedra Rose. And then I have a 14-pound Jack Russell Yorkie. Both are rescues. And his name's Piccolo. We call him Pico.
Pico
And
sounds really fast.
he is fast. He has no upper teeth, but he's really fast.
Less drag. Less
Yeah.
drag.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
that's about, I think Pico's probably about the size of my Max's head. He
Right.
just
Yes.
I got a
Yeah.
Great Dane puppy that makes appearances here and there. I lost my I had a Saint Bernard Mastiff mix, Zeke, that used to make a lot of appearances in videos over the years. He was 10,
Yeah.
but Max is my guy. He just weighed in close to 80, but his dad was 160, so I think that's where he's headed.
Wow. And I think Great Danes are the best. They're lap dogs, even when they're 160 pounds. They are lap dogs. They're so loving. Like,
He will find if there's 3 inches beside you, he's sitting beside you on the couch. Like that's just where it goes. All right, so read, dogs. What
traveling.
else?
I love
You like to
traveling.
travel. You have to. I mean, listen, if you don't in that role, man, like
Yeah.
I loved it too, and I still try to do a little bit,
Yeah.
seeing new things and going places. And I know just not to circle back into the work thing, but one of the things that I've seen you doing, which I love, is like you're building in a lot of travel to go and see people doing stuff in
Yes.
shops and things. I think
Yep.
that's super. We, by the way, casual observers of content on the internet, love that. Keep doing that.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I that is actually one of my when I was moving into this role, it was one of my goals is to get out and meet people. Think and I've knows this, I've talked to her, Denise, my editorial director, Gustafson, she knows this, I've said it to her a lot. I think getting out and getting into people's shops, talking to them, people that I know, people I don't know. Sometimes I reach out to people who I've never met and say, like, hey, I'm gonna be in your area. Come do a tour. That has such a big like the impact. And I know
Do they love that? Do they love that or
they
no?
love it, and also then I have a relationship with them. So I know that there have been times where and I haven't gotten to do it, you know, so much yet, but I've done it, a handful of times. And some of those people who I didn't know beforehand, I now know that I can call on them if I need someone on a webinar or if, I need a
Yeah.
source for an upcoming article. And those people previously who might not have responded to me until I actually met them in person and spent some time with them now respond to me, which goes, is also the case for when I meet people at events and stuff. Like there are times where, because I'm really just starting out in this role and people are getting to know me now, there are times where I've reached out to people and they don't respond. And no fault to them. Look, my inbox is crazy too. I absolutely understand.
Yeah.
But it's not until I meet them in person, shake their hand, and get to know them that then they respond to me. And so I am trying to get out not just to see new technology, to get into people's, facilities and actually become more immersed in the industry, but also it's that personal, like we said, building a brand and also the
Yeah.
human to human contact is really important. So I'm trying to do that.
I was just gonna circle back to that point of like, like we said earlier, we do business with people,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And how do we interact with one another as people? It's with building
yeah,
relationships, right? And so
absolutely.
you got to start to build those relationships. And I used to find it cool that I would see like something a company be mentioned in like a news feed that normally would just be words to me. I know them. Like
Yeah.
I've been in that shop. I've seen how much trouble they have with that freaking guillotine cutter that there's
Hmm.
a or whatever the case may be, right?
Yep.
Actually, it has been an absolute joy. As always, I have no idea how more than a half an hour has passed by doing these things, but it's because I have great guests and there's great people in the industry. Thanks for giving me a little bit of background on yourself, on your role that you are feeling with printing impressions, talking a little bit about the expo and the embellishment tour. We're so grateful to have the partnership there. And man, I hope people will watch this because they're going to get to learn a lot about you. And I think it's really important that they do. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been joy.
See ya.
So the cost of paper is going up, the cost of postage is going up, the cost of labor, by the way, huge problem in our industry because we are very dependent, particularly in the finishing side, upon immigrant labor.
Yeah.
And so all of these things are now coming together to make print a far more luxury item. And that's really been my talk is we're shifting now from having print be a commodity to print being a luxury.